Philippines had experienced 27 typhoons and 18 tropical storms last year, among which Typhoon Hana is the strongest. A total of 19.19 billion was estimated in damages. Manila, the Philippine capital, is hit by floods on Monday after a monsoon is intensified by a tropical storm. Many homes have been evacuated and schools, offices, and the country's stock exchange forced to close. Rubbish accumulates along Manila Bay from a nearby dump as some blame poor drainage for the extent of the flooding. People evacuated from their homes take shelter in a local school building.
Talagang nangangamba po ako nung time po na kagabi. Talagang maaga pa lang po, ready na po talaga ako kasi yung nangyari nga po nung ilang bahanang dumating. Kaya talagang alerto po talaga ako nung time na nag-first alarm na po. Talagang nakaano na po ako na gusto ko na po talagang mag-evacuate.
Flood, one of the major issues that us Filipinos is experiencing every single year.
We know that this happens, but are we doing something about it? Are we even aware of how it started? How us humans can affect the cause of flood in our society, and how can we make a change to this dreadful cycle? This is Yvonne, and today we will get into details about flooding, and this is Echo Report.
It floods because it rains. The rains and the typhoons that brings them increase the magnitude. Yes, it's climate change. To deny this, it's futile. It's here now and it makes all historical flood levels, well, history. The paths of typhoons have also become unpredictable. Typhoons now cross parts of the archipelago that did not used to have them. So, people are caught unprepared. Despite these changes in patterns, Metro Manila still gets dumped with rain, specifically since its total area and population in this area is equivalent to or larger than most provinces in many regions in the country. It floods because of the population and urbanization. Metro Manila has a population of 12 million and counting. Urbanization, specifically urban sprawl, is a manifestation of all these millions living together and needing houses, buildings, roads, parking lots, and infrastructure. All this cover ground that used to be open and able to absorb much of the storm water that fell on the metropolis. In our lifetime, we've seen fringes of metropolis gobbled up and transformed from Kogan and rice fields to thousands of subdivisions, hundreds of shopping malls, hectares of overpaid parking lots, dozens of business districts. All this hard covering serves to channel all the storm water much faster than an already made drainage system designed when reality has much more open land and much less rain. The open ground serves to mitigate and the volume of rain. The reality was much more open land and much less rain. The open ground serves to mitigate the volume of rain that flowed over the drains and our rivers. We also had more plant cover and trees in the metropolis to suck up all this water.
It floods because the rain comes down from the denuded uplands. Metro Manila floods come from elevated surrounding bridges, all the way up to the Shaya Matrix. There, we have lost almost of our original forest cover from illegal logging. All this forest cover loss makes millions of hectares of upland a bad watershed that flows freely into the metropolis. This situation is repeated around almost major urban areas in the country. The source is upstream, and this is where solutions should start. Although it is among the longest term solutions, we need to recover our forest cover to reduce the amount of rain that floods our low-level metropolis. Metro Manila is not only low, but it's sinking. Groundwater extraction due to deep wells is causing major areas of the metropolis to sink. The north section of Kamanava and southern cities from Pasay onwards sunk from a foot to over a meter, and this has made those areas more vulnerable to floods and storm surges. Scientists have pointed to the fact that flattening has increased the reach of storm surges from the seaside to as much as 20 kilometers inland. So we get it from both ends in a perfect storm, from the mountains and from the sea. The ground is also sinking due to the weight of the concrete, buildings, and the infrastructure mentioned on the reason number 2 above. Floods because of we have less drainage than before. Reports have almost half of metropolitan esteros and canals. We used to have over 40 kilometers of them, and now we only have about 20. Many have been lost due to development, disappear without a trace.
It floods because of what left of our drain flood control infrastructure is ill-maintained. Reaching many of them is a problem because of informal settlements. Overlapping jurisdictions of local and national agencies conspire to dissipate responsibility and funding from the vital task of ensuring our drains are clogged and free. It's just like homeowners not cleaning gutters of debris before a rainy season when typhoons come and gutters overflow. It floods because urban development is unplanned and unfettered. Developments that clusters of 30 to 40 stories on retail podiums surrounded by hectares of parking cause havoc in this district plan with drainage infrastructure meant for low-density development. Because there is a lack of planning context, all drainage, road traffic, and infrastructure is useless to carry additional load. That's why most flooded areas are also traffic blocked.
It floods because many of those esteros, canals, and waterways of our metropolis we have left are chock full of informal settlers. Because there are no alternatives for low-income mass housing, desperate people settled in desperate areas. These settlements have little by way of solid waste management and sewers. All these go to waterways, filling many of them so solid that dogs can cross them. And we wonder why it floods. Many of those drainage ways and easements were identified in the several master plans made for Manila and Quezon City.
Planners had allocated as much as 50 meters of space on either side of these, but greed set in and these easements disappeared, and what little was left are now our favelas teeming with millions.
Floods because the main flood control system started in the 70s and was never completed. The Manggahan floodway was only one half of the picture. It was meant to channel floodwater to Laguna Bay.
The lake was meant only as a holding area, and the excess water was to have been flushed from there to Manila Bay via the Parañaque spillway. That spillway was never built. To build it now would cost trillions, and urban sprawl has seen its path covered with more millions of people and thousands of structures. Now let's tackle the solutions to stop flood in Metro Manila. Approved by the government in September of 2012, the plan consists of a number of structural and non-structural measures, including a dam in the upper catchment of Marikina City and improvements in the river systems, in particular the Pasig-Marikina River. The plan also proposes the raising of the floodplain along Laguna Lake, located south of Manila, to ensure the safety of some 300,000 people who are affected by regular flooding in the area. The construction of the dam and related activities, such as reforestation of the upper catchment area, will take a long time. Small interventions are already being implemented by the government using its own funds. The government started the dredging of waterways and modernizing pumping stations, and the bank is helping with technical assistance to make sure that the pumps being used are modern ones and best suited for the conditions here in Metro Manila.
Our drainage is also affected by the issue of solid waste found in waterways.
one bottle thrown into the river or stream affects the drainage or pumping station because it could cause damage to it. At the height of the typhoon, social media also paved the ways of act of altruism. As groups scramble to organize relief efforts for those displaced from massive flooding, increasing awareness about these concepts and the need for better solid waste management is as important as the structural parts of the flood master plan. Development has not been kind to our rivers, creeks, and canals. In particular, formal development such as factories, roads, highways, and real estate projects has been left unchecked. Development has been practically unregulated, despite the presence of law that require permits and inspection. Now the government are more strict when requires an approval for the concerned agency before starting a new project.
The loss of a healthy ecosystem is a common cause of increasing disaster risk. Yes, really, the disaster risk reduction program consider natural resources management as a vital strategy. This is why NGO, local counterparts, united themselves for flood control management. They started implementing a 5-year program in the Philippines and 8 other countries by combining conventional community-based risk reduction measures with ecosystem-based approaches. For example, wetland restoration, reforestation, and environmental protection measures. They will increase the resilience of hundreds of thousands of people against floods, storms, and mudslides. Various other climate hazards. This will result in a new paradigm where the maintenance of a healthy ecosystem is one of the fundamentals of the risk reduction.
We realize that the large-scale program is much needed and timely effort to work with government officials and communities toward a management approach where healthy ecosystems are seen as a core part of a human development and resilience.
The loss of a healthy ecosystem is a common cause of increasing disaster risk. Yes, really, the disaster risk reduction program consider natural resources management as a vital strategy. This is why NGO, local counterparts, united themselves for flood control management. They started implementing a 5-year program in the Philippines and 8 other countries by combining conventional community-based risk reduction measures with ecosystem-based approaches. For example, wetland restoration, reforestation, and environmental protection measures. They will increase the resilience of hundreds of thousands of people against floods, storms, and mudslides. Various other climate hazards. This will result in a new paradigm where the maintenance of a healthy ecosystem is one of the fundamentals of the risk reduction.
Metro Manila, pakat nun. Nawala eh.
The fact this flattering has
Archipelagos of teeming.
It's fine. It's teeming with
Sige,
That's the last
sige, last
word.
sentence. Last sentence.